Theocracy is the fruit of apologetic and, in a broader sense, Christianity itself. We cannot be considered Christian or a Christian church if not theocratic. No Christian can accept that the rule of God is tied to nationalism, race, or other human institution. God is the ruler and owner of the universe and tolerates no competing claims to his regime. Theocratics assumes a lot of things, some may not be immediately obvious. Politics, economics, and religion are three disparate areas of human activity. No religion attempts to assume the rule of political leader or economic system. On the other hand, no economic system attempts to serve as a religion or political system. Nor do political systems take over the role of religion or markets. And so, we are familiar with a tripartite system. Theocracy appears to require us to subsume our religion to the state and the practice of our religion to the needs of government, or we rule simply as a way to convert our subjects. But Christianity is not a religion in the conventional sense. Christianity is a faith, and faith transcends the usual tripartite divisions. What needs to be understood is that we have economics and religion because the politics we use is limited in what it can do and the areas it can handle. The same goes for the other spheres. They exist because each is limited in its range of impacts. But faith is more generalized, which is another reason Christianity ought not be considered a religion. Christianity is sufficient to span the entire gamut of human interest. But for now, we will simply consider what are labeled the 10 great evils, TGE. These are, in no particular order, unemployment, debt, poverty, inflation, pollution, waste, taxation, homelessness, war, and crime. The 3 legs on civilization's stool are each by themselves insufficient to create a civilization. But even together they fall short because, as 3 incomplete solutions, they fail to address the real problem. What they do is alleviate the symptoms, rather than correct the disease. There is only one problem, but it cannot be treated properly by simply moderating the symptoms. It's all about information. Noise is that component of a transmission that neutralizes some part of the information being sent. Noise tends to increase redundancy in that the signal must be duplicated to some extent to compensate for the noise. The greater the noise, the greater is the need for redundancy to compensate for the decay in the signal. When someone says that a job can be done for $10, and it ends up costing more, that is a case of redundancy. Why give a wrong quote? If a politician says they will end unemployment but only reduces it by a few percentage points, this is also redundant. Politics is full of noise as is economics and religion. All politicians say things which are not true and make promises they cannot keep. This means a lot of what they do is a waste of everyone's time. A lot of the trouble is words that are improperly defined, for example unemployment. How can we end unemployment if it is not properly defined? The usual way to define employment is having a job. This means someone is paying you to do something. But then we realize some forms of employment do not produce anything of value. Indeed, there are jobs that would be better off not being done. Society would be better off if they paid some people to do nothing, in preference to them working at what they used to do. Politicians are the prime example. What value do politicians add to the community? If we wanted to create jobs, would anyone preferentially create more jobs for politicians? Of course, we all know that one of the worst things a nation can do is increase the number of bureaucrats because they rarely produce anything near to what they cost in wages. What we notice about politicians is that they do not make money in the sense of earning an income from making things others want and are willing to pay for. Politicians force us to purchase whatever it is they are selling, if they sell anything at all. Any service they provide does not produce income. Those who do want what the government provides, do not want to buy the services or cannot. Nothing the government does is self-sustaining. Therefore, it is a parasitic activity. We all know that what is called a free market is a preferable way of allocating resources. But few know why or what a free market is. It is usually defined as a market without government regulation. This is true, but what is considered a government regulation is not always worth what they cost the economy. Remember, we want a clear signal, with no noise. If we are to communicate clearly, the first thing we have to consider is the importance of honesty. Apriorian promises to use only the free market and that which is compatible with the free market, to create a privatized state. Apriorian offers a platform that is totally devoid of social costs. The mechanisms we use are those that belong to the free market. The free market and the public sector are not compatible. If the free market is devoid of regulation, then fascism is no longer possible. There is no socialism without regulation and no regulation without a socialist state. Socialism is a regulatory state, that is all it is. Without regulation and a body to produce it, there is no state. The state is a power broker, playing off one faction against another. It mediates disputes, which it cannot do, if it does not possess the physical force required to enforce its decisions. All regulations are just opinions without the physical force to enforce the rulings. The legitimacy of the state rests on the law of the jungle. This is expressed by the dictum, might makes right and the end justifies the means. The economic and religious sectors would not exist without the political power of the state, and so to say that where there is a state there is a free market, is incorrect. If the state exists, the market will be regulated to some degree. The problem is, who does the regulation favor? The regulations of a socialist state will favor the poor and lower classes more. The regulations of a capitalist state will favor the business sector and the rich. That businesses are free to engage in business without hindrance does not mean the market is not regulated, it only means it is not regulated in a way that hinders the supply side of the market. Apriorian pledges to end the unnecessary costs created by parasites, including the greatest parasite of them all, the state. Apriorian apologetic employs scripture to end social problems within the context of a Christian ministry for the ending of parasitism. We employ only the mechanisms of the free market. The free market is code for man under God. In a free market there is no human agency inserted between man and God. We are works-based because our measure of success is the elimination of parasitism. Christianity has unfortunately become focused on faith. Works are not only relegated to a minor or even negative role. Churches that focus on works are called cults. The standard church is largely a celebration of the power of faith. We praise God because He has saved us as undeserving wretches, as it says in the song, Amazing Grace. The doctrine of saved by faith often sounds like saved because I deserve it. We claim we cannot earn salvation and that we deserve condemnation. This is true, but we now have no explanation for our salvation other than it being the result of a random choice. Which is not choice at all and which in fact denies God's infinite goodness. Why would He save you, who do not deserve it, instead of your neighbor who is equally a sinner, unless there is something more desirable about you? What does infinite wisdom and power count for if the people God selects are identical to the ones He does not select, for salvation? If God takes one person that does not merit salvation and saves them, then why not all? We are saved by faith, but it is a demonstrable faith. Indeed, it is a scientifically measurable faith. A ministry is works-based. Ministries exist because many in the church do not feel faith is enough. Apriorians do not see a distinction between works and faith. Faith is the invisible part and works the visible part, but to claim one can exist without the other is bad theology. Our faith can be measured in our works. Our works ultimately prove the existence of God. A ministry applies scripture to work of faith to produce the fruits of faith. A ministry is a particular way to demonstrate scripture has the answers. Our goal is the elimination of parasitism. Apriorian Apologetic is a works-based church whose fruit is the elimination of parasitism. This constitutes a scientific proof of God. The measure of our faith is the rate at which we dispose of the 10 great evils. These are all the products of parasites. We predict that the Bible contains solutions to the 10 great evils: unemployment, debt, poverty, inflation, pollution, waste, taxation, homelessness, war, and crime, and is a theory of everything which serves as the foundation of a single universal science. Once unemployment is eliminated, the rest is easy. When we have eliminated unemployment, we have largely eliminated parasitism. A ministry is a free market. Free markets prevent parasitism and free riding. When people cannot live without working, they must work. Eliminating unemployment goes a long way to eliminating the 10 great evils. Apriorian apologetic is applied Christianity. Apologetic is a universal science. As apologetic reveals the truth, it demonstrates the necessity of God.